In 2011, BYD's Wang Chuanfu was already a billionaire. Panasonic had been making lithium batteries since before your first smartphone. LG and Samsung had been in the EV battery game for over a decade. And in a small coastal city in Fujian province, a city most people outside of China have never heard of, a company quietly opened its doors. No customers, no track record, or not even a name anyone outside of the industry would recognize. 6 years later, it was number one in the world. It has not given up that seat since then. Oh, and one more thing. The company's English name is CATL, which stands for Contemporary Amperex Technology Limited. Its Chinese name translates into the era of Ningde. Yes, and these two names have nothing to do with each other, which honestly tracks perfectly for a company that has made a habit of not doing what anyone has expected. If you want a shortcut for understanding what CATL is and why it matters, here's one. Think TSMC, but for batteries. CATL now powers roughly 1 in 3 electric vehicles on Earth. Its founder, Robin Zeng Yuqun, a kid grew up hauling rice over mountain roads to pay for school, is worth $63 billion. The technology inside your EV, and probably the next 5 EVs after that, traces back to a decision made in a factory in Dongguan in the late 1990s. A licensed patent from the Bell Labs that nearly blew up in everyone's faces, and a Japanese company called TDK that unknowingly incubated its own biggest competitor. It's a story about scale, about government policy used as a competitive moat, about one scientist who spent 30 years building China's battery industry from scratch, and the student he mentored who took it planetary. And it's a story about what happens when you arrive last to the race and win it anyways. Let's get into it. I'm your host, Pan.
And I'm Linda. Welcome to Ascent. Let's start the story as we have always done, which is all the way from the beginning.
Robin was born in 1968 in a poor mountain village in Ningde, as they all are.
1968 China.
Everyone was poor at the time. Yeah, in Fujian province. He majored in shipbuilding and marine engineering in Shanghai Jiaotong University, and he graduated in 1989. Fun fact, he has an alum in the same university, Niu Shen, who later worked for Sequoia Capital. So this university is at a level where a lot of talents would gather.
Yeah, Shanghai Jiaotong University is one of the top tier universities in China.
Absolutely. And right after he graduated, he got hired by a state-owned enterprise locally in Fujian, which is kind of the dream for all of the parents at the time.
Yeah.
Your kid would go into a state-owned enterprise and have a very stable job and have a very good benefits on a monthly basis. Unfortunately, that job was very poorly paid. It was only 98 kwai, about $10 at the time.
Per month. Wow.
And Robin was probably thinking the same. It's like, this is stable, but this is also not getting me anywhere. Why don't I try something else? Mm-hmm. So he went for a private enterprise that was located in Dongguan, which is in Guangdong province. And that company is called SAE Magnetics, which is a subsidiary in China of TDK, which is a Japanese company. It was the world's largest manufacturer of the read-write head for computer hard drives at the time. Sounds a little ancient, but that's kind of what they do at the time.
So if you remember C drives in your computer, Windows 95, 98, XP, what's reading, ancient terms, what's reading and writing those C drives is what they're making.
Right.
That little pin.
That's right. SAE Magnetics was manufacturing the magneto-resistant part, and that is used in the computers. The core innovation for TDK, very shortly, is they commercialized a chemical component called ferrite, and that goes into all the drives. So if you have listened to cassette or tapes or basically drive writers, that's that's what they're doing. And that was in very high demand in the 90s.
That's breaking edge technology back in the 90s.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. It was computer related, right?
Yes.
And you might be wondering, why would Japanese companies or Japanese manufacturing exist in Guangdong, in cluster at the time? In the 90s, it was a very high time for foreign companies to come to China, and they all come as foreign direct investment and FDI. In the 80s, a lot of them came into China through joint ventures. And in the 90s, a new trend started, which is wholly foreign-owned companies. Japanese factory, they clustered in Guangdong, in that part of the area, because these places are made into key manufacturing hubs, the Pearl River Delta, which is Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and Dongguan, primarily focusing on consumer electronics, machinery, housing appliances, and computers. And those companies, you may ring a bell, which are Canon, Mitsubishi, and TDK was one of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Who landed there.
And I think the proximity to Hong Kong probably also had something to do with the fact that they set up factories there.
Absolutely.
It's also a low tax region, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Japan back then had a very high concentration in the electronic sector. And I think you said it right. Because of the manufacturing convenience and the financial convenience in Hong Kong, that's why they were able to all land it up in that region. And our Robin Zeng started in TDK as a rank and file engineer after he graduated. He started working in SAE TDK for a decade. While he was working in the company, he made a few friends who all later on became the first batch of founding fathers of the first company that we're going to discuss in just a bit, ATL.
All right. Who are they?
The founding fathers are, well, let's start with the person who got Robin into the company, which is the highest ranking Chinese in the company. And his name is Liang Shaokang. We call him Raymond. He's an HKU engineering grad, joined SAE after graduation, and became a part of the senior leadership in 1999. So he spotted Robin. The next person would be someone who worked very closely with Robin and almost day to day. This Dr. Chen Tanghua, we call him TH, is the direct superior of Robin, the person who worked closest with Robin, and he is a graduate of Taiwan University chemistry department, got a PhD at UC Berkeley, went to IBM after graduation from UCB. He is well educated in physics and chem. Since TDK's established in 1935, he was one of the most important non-Japanese executive director in the company. And he is the most important mentor, would you say that, to Robin? Because he brought Robin so many opportunities to go out, see the world, to learn, pushed himself to become an engineering specialist. And if you were to be having a mentor / boss like that, chances are you'll be doing great things. So hold on to people who are like that.
For sure, for sure.
And the last person is Mike, Zhang Yujie. He is also a graduate from Taiwan University, double E department, and he was a overseas returnee as well, studied in the US in Notre Dame, finished his PhD, had experience working for Ford and IBM before starting his career in SAE.
And a close friend of TH.
That's right. In 1999, at the age of 31, 10 years after Robin worked for SAE, Robin became the youngest director of engineering for SAE, which is great,
10 years to director. It's great career trajectory.
Yeah. He apparently was very talented and was able to resolve problems that other engineers cannot resolve. So for example, like some of the most typical problems at the time, your hard drive has very limited density of storage. Therefore, by increasing the density of those storage, you basically improve your product to the next level. And Robin was actively resolving problems like that. So he had a very good hand with chemicals and working on the physics properties with all the products that he had, got promoted, and his mentor, TH, continuously sent him overseas to study. Also in that period, that's how Robin got exposed to the world of rechargeable battery because he promoted so fast. And as we mentioned, TDK SAE was a wholly foreign-owned company. It's not a Chinese company. So what Robin faces was you hit a glass ceiling.
Right.
The
bamboo ceiling.
The bamboo ceiling that bamboo people created.
Less of a bamboo ceiling because it's a Japanese company.
Yeah, right?
You get what I mean.
So structural limit, and mainland Chinese employee could only advance so far. The real executive posts are for Japanese or maybe Hong Kong executives. So in the meantime, a Shenzhen company offered Robin a position as a general manager. It's a very senior leadership role with a clear path, safety, and prestige. And, as one...
And a raise.
Yeah, and a raise. and any Chinese parent would be like, Robin, go take the job.
Yes.
Make us proud. And Robin once again turned it down. Like, he didn't want the stable job, and then he didn't want to be the GM for this Shenzhen company. And someone proposed him a very interesting idea. So in 1999, our Raymond, the highest ranking executive officer, the president of SAE Magnetics, the highest ranking person of the three, started to orchestrate a new company.
Yeah.
He pitched a battery startup idea to Robin and TH and to Mike. He offered, strategic vision and battery opportunities. Let's focus on consumer electronics. I'll help you get the money. Don't worry about it. I got you. And he invited some of the employees that he had very close relationship with. And Raymond, for this startup, served as the chairman and CEO of the company. And when he said he will raise money, he really did get some money. He raised $2.5 million US paid in capital. This company started running. And this company is sort of the prequel of CATL.
Yes.
It's called ATL. And yes, you just cut the C off. It's Amperex Technology Limited.
Exact same name, just without the contemporary.
Just without the contemporary.
Okay.
TH is still the senior executive of the ATL company. He took the role of the president / COO, handling the day-to-day operational side of things. And he asked Robin to take care of product development, which I guess Robin naturally falls onto, because both men are senior than him, literally older. So Robin will be the person who is younger and running on the ground and fixing all the problems and working with all of the factory employees.
When your manager and your manager's manager asks you to start a company with them, I think you have to do a bit of the operations, of course.
There's a lot of things you have to do.
Yeah.
And he also saw Robin's potential in solving technical problems, which also falls under your narrative, which is if you're starting a company with your senior and you're a senior, you will be doing a lot of
You're the one
job.
that's solving problems.
Yeah.
He's also very, very good at solving these kind of technical problems, as we'll see from time to time after he starts CATL as well.
Yeah. You kind of want to prove yourself a bit. Yeah. So Robin, of course, solving all the problems, was named the head of R&D as a product manager. The youngest of the three, he really did above and beyond while working with the two others, because he was the person, he did two things. First, we're about to get to, which is he solved the Bell Labs license problem. And the second is, remember the company ATL started in 1999, and TH just 1 year before that sent Robin to study in the South China University of Technology, which is conveniently located just an hour away from where they work in Dongguan. South China University of Technology is in Guangzhou, which is basically 1-2 hours driving. It's not very far off.
So you work and you study at the same time.
And guess what did he send him to study in the university for a master's degree? You study electronics engineering in the Department of Applied Physics to understand how the future of batteries would be designed.
Oh, interesting. Even though ATL is started in 1999,
they're doing things by learning.
Right, I feel like they are. It's somewhat planned, almost like you have to apply to school, get in school, right?
Right.
And yeah.
And when I say Raymond really had the vision, here's what the vision is. If we were to be that old in 1999. I was a kid in 1999,
Me too.
But I experienced on the consumer end of things, right?
And you lived there in 1999.
I lived there in 99. I did. Oh my God, I did live there. Jeez. Oh, I can.
You might have crossed paths with the three of them.
Why that moment? When you want to start a company, you ask two questions. Why you? Why now? The why you problem was quite straightforward. You both had worked for foreign companies in a cluster of manufacturing companies. So you can see who's doing what better. Like you will get a good sense of what's going on. And why now is the market demand at the time. Consumer electronics market is about to skyrocket in China exactly at that time. The growth rate towards the end of 1990 is vertical, is basically vertical. And to put it in human terms, you'll get a sense of what's going on. The consumer electronics ownership in China, a color television that you would own at home, a VCD or a DVD player, like we actually have one of those back home, a pager, a mobile phone, Sony Walkman, laptop or desktop PC started to become a household thing, like starting in 1997.
That's all
onwards.
around that time.
That's all around that time. No wonder TDK was putting in Dongguan because the need was very much, not only were they shipping overseas, but China's own demand was also very high. So
based on the population size of China, they know if everything's done correctly, this could be millions and billions of dollars.
Right. And most of what TDK and ATL supplied at the time now become really big companies within China just because they existed at the time. So Raymond, as someone who was working for a company that provides like parts, he saw that the demand is going up very high. Let's do this.
And one kind of interesting story about Raymond as well. SAE Magnetic was started by him, was co-founded by him, and was acquired by TDK in the 1980s. So it's not his first try as an entrepreneur. He was already successful in the sense that his previous company got acquired by such a large institution.
So he has a very good entrepreneurial gut feeling, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I want to start this, we'll get acquired. And you learn to, and he really lived through a time where things are just going up.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what you do.
So the three of them actually was a perfect combination.
Perfect combination. Now, at this point, ATL was founded, doing its business.
All right.
Very clear on, we want consumer electronics, we want battery, we'll be making some.
All right. How?
However, someone else is in the battery market. They're not the first one who come in and say, hey, we have battery options for you. At the time, there were Japanese competitors, there were Korean competitors, and some of the most noticeable ones are like Panasonic, and you have Samsung SDI, there's also LG Chem. So no matter what you do, you're kind of late to the game. And cylindrical batteries are created, prismatic cells were also created, and you're like, oh, in what other shape can I be creating batteries in?
They, as a new entrant, they need to find that niche that kind of works for them.
Right.
Cannot just go head to head with giants.
Right.
So what did they do?
In 2001, that's when they first started operating. They had a few deals, but those deals are, related to the consumer products that we just talked about. And they are like Bluetooth headphones. There are some VCDs and DVDs. They're all great, but you're only being a battery supplier for them. You want one case that really makes you stand out so that you can win more. You're at the MVP stage where you want more prestigious clients to come to you and find you. At least I think that's where they were going for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So who did they go to?
So they spend a lot of money on one thing. Well, in the meantime, one order was kind of flirting with them, but they haven't secured it yet. They need to prove themselves to be good at battery making to be able to get the deal. We'll come to the name of the deal later, but let's just go to how much money that they've spent and why that order matters. So remember, they raised 2.5 million in starting the company.
Yep.
And one day, this technical challenge come about, and you need to prove yourself. And to be able to tackle this technical challenge, you need to spend at least $1 million in licensing fee.
Okay.
And
because they started with nothing, they need to first get or create a product, right?
that's right. And this $1 million licensing fee is from Bell Labs.
Why don't I
Linda has a story. Yes, go for it. Like, what's the Bell Labs license story?
Okay. Pan just mentioned that the market was already saturated with batteries that are cylindrical or prismatic, which is rectangular, right? So they decided on a niche that is called polymer lithium-ion battery. And the polymer allows the battery shape to be whatever they want. So it's soft packaging.
I have a joke here.
Please do.
There's cylindrical and then there's prismatic, and this category would be called miscellaneous.
Oh, actually, yes.
It is. It's whatever however you want to shape it.
Exactly. So they're like, okay, this is a niche. Nobody really got this tackled correctly yet.
Because everything is customized.
It is. And it's higher cost, right?
Yeah.
Because cylindrical batteries, you can just like print and go, and you can like mass scale it. So they're like, okay, we're going to try this new thing out. And so who has the technology? Bell Labs. And back then they had a bunch of other technology. So when they reached out to Bell Labs, they weren't aware that 20 other companies has already tried and tackled this technology.
Yeah, didn't have Twitter at that
time. And so they spent $1 million, got the patent, got the licensing. And so then the next step is for them to commercialize. And this is where Zeng's technological expertise and expertise in problem solving comes in.
Raymond's like, I'm going to pay, and Robin,
you
figure this out.
So Robin got the battery, got the elements and the manual back, try to create the battery, realize when you operate the battery, it bulges.
It bloats.
And so when it bloats, there's a risk of it catching fire and blowing up, right?
I mean, more obviously, when you're having a home appliance at home, like if you have a bloating battery, that's like a danger, a signal that you want to return this. It wouldn't sell.
Right. And so they spent $1 million on something and realized that you can't commercialize it. So Robin, being the technical expert that he is at that time, spent days trying to read the manual, trying to figure out what is making it bloat, and ended up realizing that one of the components in the original manual has a very low boiling point. And that's what's making it bloat, because when the battery is operating, the temperature goes up. And so parts of it starts to blow because of the low boiling point. And so they then started testing on different components to lower or to raise the boiling point. 2 weeks later, only 2 weeks later.
So it wasn't too hard a problem to solve.
Right, but you would wonder why the other 20 company who also bought the patent didn't get it commercialized, right? And so
didn't have Robin.
Legend has it. Robin single-handedly solved this issue, and very soon they were able to commercialize this technology. And that's what made ATL special.
And now we can mention the name, and that buyer isn't coming from anywhere. Why did they have to spend so much money on one license and have to solve the problem? Because it was Apple's iPod. They want to show themselves to the world that, hey, we are officially a battery supplier.
Right.
For Apple, in 2003, Apple was preparing to launch the new version of iPod. And if you live in this day and age and know what iPod is, you might be a 90s baby, but for those who don't know what iPod is, it is the original version of an Apple's MP3 player. It's a music player.
Yes.
Yeah. It was a hardware that can carry, you can download music. It's linked to Apple Store. Later on was the internet linked Wi-Fi version. But before, it was basically you load music into it and then you listen to it. And it has a
brought back memories.
Cute colors and has like very easy to use panel.
Yeah, the scrolling was what
made it viral.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The scrolling where you just run your finger in circles and then it'll scroll instead of the previous kind of up and down. You have to like tap a couple times.
Right.
But if you remember how thin it was, right? That is why Apple had to use this technology.
A polymer battery.
Exactly, because the typical cylindrical batteries, you cannot. There's a minimum width and height that it needs to comply with. And so Robin basically made this deal possible.
And that's how you can have a Steve Jobs designed, very thin, beautiful looking product holding in your hand without a swelling battery. That's
Thanks to
going in it.
ATL.
ATL has validated the idea, and later on they won. Of course, they won more deals after the Apple attempt.
Right.
Major customers like Samsung and Huawei, and whether it's a phone or an MP3 players, started to buy batteries from ATL.
That's right.
Doing great. So at this point, you raised $2.5 million.
Yeah.
And you have so many deals, like batteries still coming in, like there's a lot of orders. Technically, this is great, but hey, why did the VCs pull out? There was a story there, right?
Yeah. So after the initial 2.5 million funding, and after they figure out this whole polymer lithium ion battery technology, they actually had more investors knocking on their door at first in the 2002-2003 period.
Reasonable. Yeah.
Right? And they wanted the funding because they want to scale their production line. And so Carlyle and 3i, both are very well-known VCs, together just gave them $30 million to scale it up. This is 2000. So the money came in, everything at end of 2003. And then they had this Apple deal in 2004. And all of a sudden, 1 year later, the VCs are like, hey, we want to withdraw.
We're going to cash out,
Which
guys.
is, very weird. The decision was made because when they figured out the technology in 2001, all the way to 2005, in 4 years, your competitors are now realizing that this is a great market.
We're going to do polymer.
We're going to come in too.
Oh.
And so eventually they will get more and more competition. So the VC thought, hey, if this is going to be the landscape where the demand, because the production technology is getting easier and easier. And so there's going to be, they anticipate a crowded marketplace. And so they said, okay, we've experienced the high growth, right? We expect the growth to kind of flatten because of competition. So as investors, this is a good time to pull out.
Well, they anticipated the market, right? But they didn't anticipate ATL, right?
Exactly. So decision in hindsight is much easier. But interestingly, at that time, 2005, the VC, all three of them wants to pull out. So the initial VC, plus Carlyle and 3i wanted to pull out. They did make a 3-time gain. The latter two VC did make a 3-time gain. But they lost out on the 100 or how many ever times gain that they were going to, if they sticked around.
Yeah.
So in 2005, they had to find someone to take over the VC's shares, which means they had to go back to their original employee.
And don't you think that this is very counterintuitive?
Yes.
Like you managed to solve the problems, right? And you've probably hit the biggest deal of all time. And a year later, you lose your funding source. However, someone else showed up and came to the rescue. And yes, it was where they were coming from. So TDK showed up.
Yes.
And TDK made a huge investment on them. So remember, 30 million got pulled out, but 100 million was being poured into ATL, the company.
To buy out the VCs.
Right.
And so TDK was kind of their shining knight in armor. Who knew your original employer was the one that saved you from bankruptcy?
Yeah. But I think TDK also made a very sensible decision, right? Because
definitely.
They probably were also eyeing more or less the same market, because how many more, drive readers are you going to make that is going to dominate the market? Consumer electronics, battery is what was then the new sexy thing.
Yes.
That was hitting the market.
Yeah.
So TDK wanted in, made the shift, invested in them. And also retrospectively, in hindsight, I think TDK probably made the best acquisition at the time, because without ATL, TDK wouldn't even be a contestant in the EV battery field industry, right?
Can we have a little spoiler here and say that ATL is not the largest battery, consumer electrics battery manufacturer, and TDK's vast majority of TDK's current revenue and current profit comes from ATL.
Yeah. So it was a very good buy.
Yes.
Yes. It made TDK who they are. All right. And I guess nowadays, TDK are even more involved in the EV battery or the battery making field. And TDK is now officially a sponsor to Formula E. Why do we care? Because, just fans. There was a really cool poster about TDK's name plastered on Porsche team's Formula E car. It was quite cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they have completely pivoted from cassettes to drives and now to like sort of all in EV batteries. Yeah.
All right. So now let's come back to the story a little bit. We're at the end of 2005. ATL is now 100% owned by TDK. The trio are now back to work.
Back to work.
With their old employer.
With their old employers. And they are continuously solving and meeting more demands that is coming from the consumer electronics field. In 2006, ATL was so popular that they were producing about 150 million pieces of cell every single year, very large. And they had orders really coming from all the major cell phone makers. And it expanded so quickly to a point where Dongguan itself is not large enough for them. So the trio had an idea that, maybe it's a good idea that we expand to other places. And Robin thinks, naturally, we should do that. So they want to put down about $200 million into a new place. And of course, there were 6, 7, a bunch of new provinces like lining up and say, hey, can you put it at my place?
Yes.
This will be like great employment opportunity and also will get us a lot of money now the MVP is being proved and you're really good at making batteries.
Yep.
And TH's hometown, which is Nankang in Jiangxi, was also on the list wanting to. So it was not just one contestant, there were a number of them.
So every municipality wanted ATL factory to be set up there.
Yeah, that's right. In 2008, remember our Mike Zhang? He was a part of ATL now, and he was put on the project of where to locate, evaluating the possibilities of putting the factories in different locations and see which one is the most viable, most cost efficient. He was sent to Ningde, of course, by Robin. He's like, go evaluate this and see if it works. And obviously, like Robin, I think because of the local connection, he's from Ningde. So Ningde as a municipality also wanted the factories to be listed there. So Mike went there. Mike's like, cool, great, but need something that's more convincing. And Robin's like, if you don't put it there in Ningde, I'm going to quit.
Not only me, but everyone from Ningde that currently works in ATL.
Yeah.
Yes.
Seriously. Yeah, seriously. So obviously, I found this piece of information in a book that I do not trust 100%. So let's just put it's a fun rumor. But of course, the stakes are very high. They ended up putting the factory in Ningde. But why Ningde?
It's a small town.
It's a very small town. It's pretty poor, like a lot of other places in China at the time. And before CATL landed in Ningde, its GDP per capita is about 7,200 per year, which is about $1,000. And after CATL had landed in Ningde, let's just say now, 2024, Ningde's GDP per capita is 124,000 RMB.
Wow.
Which is at 20 times
this
what it was before.
Company single-handedly raised the GDP.
Yeah, single-handedly.
Well, I heard that even in 2004, the Ningde government actually reached out to Robin expressing interest. Like, hey, think about us when you want to expand. Right. So the relationship was built kind of in advance, but obviously there's a lot of convincing. So each municipality had to submit some kind of proposal because everyone wants this factory to be set up there. And so Ningde ended up giving them a lot of tax subsidies.
Makes sense.
As well as,
perks.
We'll give you good land, all kinds of stuff. So they ended up agreeing. Obviously, with Robin pushing from the inside, and also Ningde government support from the outside. That deal ultimately came through.
And as a comparison that we will make later on in the episode, I want to put it here just for now. Ningde is located at a very convenient location. Ningde is a coastal city. And not only does it have beautiful, delicious seafood, it also has ports.
Which is very important for manufacturing and shipping.
Exactly. It's a strategic advantage if you want to ship the batteries out globally.
Yeah.
It's a great thing.
Exactly.
Right. So a quick recap. 2008, what was in place so far? ATL established 1999, raised 2.5 million, did a bunch of things, and acquired by TDK with 100 million 6 years later. Not bad, right? So for someone who is doing battery startups, they could be living very comfortable lives and just, relax and sit back.
But none of them have this personality.
Yeah, but none of them. Because a few other things may have happened in 2008 around that time.
Yeah, what happened?
That made the trio think that, there will be a long journey ahead of us. First, BYD was founded in 1995. In 2008, it was invested by Berkshire Hathaway. And Wang Chuanfu was worth billion of dollars.
The CEO.
Yes, the CEO. And was definitely one of the richest person in China for a while. So that happened around that time. And also in 2008 Olympics, CATL was invited to give it a try in supplying EV buses as a battery supplier. So it was kind of an attempt, a precursor to what they were doing. And if something is showed in an event like the Olympics, you know that this is not just a one-time thing.
But the government cares about it.
The government cares about it very deeply. And one other thing is Tesla Roadster, well, not yet on the road, but is unveiled in 2008. So that was also a very major catalyst. And the battery supplier was Panasonic. And it was a prismatic cell, 18650. It's like, however, Panasonic used the physical dimensions to categorize the
length and the
batteries.
width of the battery.
Right. So our Robin wasn't, just chilling there and doing nothing. In fact, at around the same time, he went to get a PhD in between 2002 to 2006. He went to get a PhD from Professor Dr. Chen Liquan, who is likely the person who knows the most about EV batteries, aka lithium-ion batteries, inside of China.
Wow. What a coincidence.
What a coincidence.
Not exactly. He totally planned this.
Yeah. And Dr. Chen Liquan is a bit older. Well, he was born in 1940. Very smart. He was just great at studying. He made it to university in 1959. He went to China University of Science and Technology. And how good was he at studying science and technology? Your country sends you to another country to study science and technology. That's how good he was at the time. In 1959, that was a time that was prior to the Cultural Revolution. So he was able to study, and he went to the Max Planck Institute by the end of the Cultural Revolution, 1976. And he did the solid state research, which is battery related. He was introduced to the lithium nitrate field of study while he was in the Max Planck Institute. And this institute still exists today. It's called the Max Planck Society for the Advancement of Science in Germany, which I think roughly translate into the Academy of Science for whether it's the US or China, the centralized science institute that directs and organizes and accelerates the science growth of the country. So, and in the 70s, early 70s, we all know that there was an oil crisis. That's why when Dr. Chen studied in Germany, he really focused on the alternative energies and energy solutions and solid state lithium batteries. But it was way too early for solid state lithium battery. It was like a myth or like a legend. He was studying something that was at least 4 decades ahead of time.
That's right.
Right? So he studied under Werner Wepner, this professor, and was focusing on the solid state ionics. This is when lithium batteries were completely nascent. Came back to China in 1978, convinced the Chinese Academy of Science, hey, this is important, or this is going to be important. And
in 30 years.
Yeah,
40 years.
despite the Chinese Academy of Science at the time was really focusing on the traditional and the conventional energy at the time, of course, naturally. Yeah. So he had to advocate for himself that this is something that's worthy of putting more resource into. Mm-hmm. And he was the first person in China to found a solid state lithium iron lab in the 80s. And in 1987, as alternative energy becomes more important inside of China, he was then put in charge of the polymer lithium battery project for the country during the 7th five-year plan. Mm-hmm. In 1995, this lab, his team, had produced the first liquid lithium iron battery in 1995.
Okay.
He's the first person who handmade a battery out of his lab. And in 1988, he built China's first pilot production line for the cylindrical lithium iron batteries, basically set the foundation for the entire industry. And in 2001, he became an official member of the Chinese Academy of Science. Academician.
And this is when Robin, I guess, started studying with him.
Exactly. In 2001, he became an official member. And in 2002, like the Chinese Academy of Science, like, oh, you can officially take PhD students right now. And guess who he took? But how do they know each other? It's because of TH. Like TH pushed Robin and say, hey, if we want to go deeper into the battery industry, you must know how EV battery is done or how bigger battery is done.
Send Robin to solve all the problems.
So I'm too old for this, but you can. Go do it. So thanks to TH, Robin gets pushed into CAS, and that's when conveniently when Dr. Chen became a very big deal in China. And Robin became his first and only PhD student, first batch. And
his young Padawan.
I know. And he was doing a part-time PhD in CAS from 2002 to 2006.
So Robin not only co-founded ATL, but was studying both a master degree and a PhD.
Oh, yeah.
For the first 7 years.
His bosses push him really hard. They say, Robin, like, do not sleep. Go study and go fix problems.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. Which made Robin who he is today, I guess.
True.
Back to 2008, you know, when a series of things happened and Robin now concluded with his PhD study. And he's so certain that, hey, guys, I don't know whether this is going to be put in EV, but this battery is going to be the future. Mm-hmm. So we should do this. We should definitely go all in on this.
Yeah.
And he pitched Raymond and Mike, and do you think this is a good idea? We should be doing something that's EV battery related. And both of them said, oh, yes, we should definitely do that. But remember, he was pitching this when ATL was under TDK. Mm-hmm. TDK had an issue with it because as a publicly listed company, you need to focus on the high margin, high volume consumer electronics market, aka smartphones, laptops, and tablets.
Makes sense.
And EV at the time was very nascent. It was in the infancy of its industry. Yeah. And it is extremely high risk, right? Think about this. If you were to go into, like, no one knows what the landscape of EV battery looked like at that point.
Roadster hasn't even made sales yet at 2008.
Exactly. No one figured this out. Very high risk, small batches. If you went into the wrong field, in a few years, you could be eliminated. So TDK, as a very responsible, risk-averse, publicly listed Japanese company, reasonably decided that, hey, we're not going to go crazy about this, but we want you to continue on with what you do.
Yeah. Try it out at small scale,
right.
maybe.
So that's how they, try it out on a small scale. TDK is still the parent company. And now we know ATL is wholly foreign owned, Japanese company. Within ATL, under ATL, there is a new subsidiary that's been created. It's called ATL In. And this is a wholly foreign-owned subsidiary that only does the consumer electronics part, which doesn't give up the profit, doesn't give up the volume and do exactly what is good for the business.
So in 2008, ATL and Robin and team came to a compromise that you can actually start a subsidiary within ATL to work on R&D for the EV batteries, but we're not going to support you fully in terms of production facility, manufacturing, etc. And so Robin and his team actually started working on the subsidiary, which is fully concentrated or fully focused on EV batteries. So that was a bit of a compromise, right? And then came around 2011, which is when, and a couple of things happened in between 2008 and 2011. So first of all, after the Olympics, which kind of triggered this whole EV bus production, the Chinese automobile industry and the government set aside 10 billion RMB, so about 1.5 billion US dollars of grants and discount loans. And they established a very large-scale pilot program, which actually works on providing subsidies for EV buses, sanitation trucks, and taxis.
The commercial vehicles.
Commercial vehicles, civic use. And there's a plan, or there's a scheme called 10 cities, 1,000 vehicles, which is, it's called 10 cities, but ultimately 25 cities signed up.
We like numbers in tens.
So the 25 cities committed to 1,000 EVs, also these civic EVs, not your sedans, not your passenger vehicles, for the next 3 years. And those are heavily subsidized by the government, right? And so then Robin saw this opportunity and kind of upped his EV department research. Then in 2010, something else happened, which is TH now kind of heads up the Chinese ATL, right? Unfortunately, he passed away. And before he passed away, he actually wanted to IPO ATL. Reasonable because before 2005, so when they established ATL all the way back in 1999, they actually had high hopes for the company and eventually want to IPO and, you know, earn a lot of money through various rounds of investment. But because of the funding issue that we talked about, they ended up working as employees again for their old employer. So there's always been hopes that they eventually kind of monetize on their startup.
Getting to retirement. Not really. Getting to retirement again.
Exactly. And so I guess there was an attempt. The attempt might, regardless of whether he passed away, I think it might be a long stretch. But because he passed away in 2010, the amount of, I guess, say in ATL as a company and the direction also kind of died down a little bit with this. Obviously, Mike took up that role and really helped Robin later on spin off the subsidiary. Most importantly, in 2011, which is when CATL really spun off, the old battery division or EV battery division of ATL that Robin created in 2008 finally spun off 3 years later, is because the Chinese government decided that any company with 50% or more foreign invested share will not be able to sell to Chinese EV producers and acquire that subsidy. And so when the Chinese EV producers start purchasing from ATL, that basically kills, if there is no spin-off where the ownership of the new company is 50% or more Chinese, the entire department will be gone. So TDK then had to make a decision of whether we continue or not. And obviously, TDK as a company cannot continue, right? The most that they can do is have a 49% ownership of a new company that Robin or someone else heads up. And so Robin and Mike obviously wants this, right? I've been working on this EV battery for 3 years.
Just finished my PhD.
Not to give this up. This is an opportunity, just like when they saw the opportunity with consumer portable electronics back in the 90s, they're seeing this new opportunity coming up, and they're at the best position to really benefit from this because of his PhD, his relationship, and ATL's manufacturing expertise. So they really, really wanted this. And TDK was like, I'm not sure, right? Because back then, like you said, the amount of battery that's actually been produced for consumer electronics is 30 gigawatt hours. For EV, it's like not even 1/10 of that, right? So should I invest this or should I just kill the project? So Mike actually had a lot to do with kind of working with the board in Japan to make this happen. So ultimately in December of 2011, CATL as a company is officially established. And the ownership structure is then 15% will be invested by ATL, which will be owned 100% by
the
TDK.
Japanese
So
company.
15% Japanese and 85% Chinese. Now we finally made it to the establishment of CATL. And it's an establishment by necessity because of this government policy. It's not effectively a bad divorce by any means. So in 2011, the new factory of CATL, the new location of CATL is right across the street from ATL. And for years, they actually share the same cafeteria. They share the same daycare. They share the same badging system. So they're effectively friends. Yes.
And it almost sounds like that CATL was using either ATL's branding and name, but just existed in a Chinese ownership format.
Exactly.
That was the only difference. right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Even like CATL at first need to ramp up production, right? So at first it's still renting production facility from ATL. The only difference is that CATL produces EV batteries. ATL produces consumer electronics batteries. And that's been how it's going for years and years after that. Even mostly up to today, that's how it is. There's a lot of, so interestingly, they call it, in Ningbo, they call it C factory and A factory. And there's a lot of CA relationships and CA marriages. Because, so there's no secret between the two companies, right?
Yeah.
And so it's by any means, they're on friendly terms. They're kind of targeting different customers, sharing the same technology development.
I wonder how the NDAs are signed in between like the employees of those two companies. Do not share, even if it's spouse.
Do not share with your husbands and wives.
Now CATL is newly established, need to build my MVP again and need to find like the Apple iPod sort of supplier again. This time, on top of the original trio, the team that they already have, well, trio missing one, but added more employees, Robin had wanted a new add to the mix. He landed with a foreign employee, and his name is Robert Gallion, which I think is very much related to the later BMW negotiation and securing a Western deal.
Okay.
Who's Robert? Or Bob? He had worked for General Motors for 21 years. He had worked on a very cool, but a very tragically ended project. That's the EV1 project. That was GM's first mass-produced EV car in the 1990s. It was in 1996, and it was very futuristic. Robin hired Bob as the CTO to bring, what was used in the EV1 projects, all the automotive engineering and standards to a Chinese battery startup, and made CATL into a tier 1 automotive-grade EV battery supplier. Bob officially retired in 2019 and is no longer working for CATL. He's still doing a lot of consulting about EV or EV battery-related subjects. And if you want to know more about EV1, it is the earliest EV in the US, but only on a leasing format. There's no purchase. The entire project was later on crushed and lobbied against by the oil industry.
Okay.
And all the EVs are taken back and crushed into pieces. If you would like to know more, we won't deviate into that, but you can watch a documentary that's called Who Killed the Electric Car? So Robert Gallion was the person that Robin had hired into CATL for a while to set everything up.
Very interesting. This is a little bit actually tragic I don't want to use the word tragic, but if you think about how advanced US was when this vehicle was produced, But without the government support, it just kind of died off. And if you look at the share of US versus Europe versus China, it's just vastly different. And this is actually one of the central themes in why CATL succeeded. We're going to talk about more later on is government support, right? Chinese government had a very large role to play in the success of this industry and in CATL.
For sure.
So going back to BMW's initial supplier had a long-term relationship with this is Samsung SDI, which is one of the top EV battery suppliers at the time. But it's looking for alternatives around that time, 2011. And so after a bit of searching in China, they've landed on ATL. At that time, it's still kind of ATL, CATL mix, right? So they thought that ATL would be a good battery manufacturer. They're fully aware that their production line needs to be upgraded in terms of going from consumer electronic into EV. Right, so they then started talking to ATL, then continue the conversation with CATL. And Robin, at that time, because of the new CATL establishment, he had a lot of say in the future of this EV company, in the newly established CATL. It's almost as if he has some level of autocracy. And this is actually, in hindsight, quite important for all kinds of advanced manufacturing. Because if you look at Huawei, right, BYD, TSMC, all of them actually had this guy at the top that can make decisions. And this is not, I mean, it is autocracy, but it is high risk, right? Advanced manufacturing is high risk and you need to be fast paced. So having this guy is actually like just drawing parallels, but having someone who can make decisions, who has the power to make decisions for the entire company to kind of go toward is very important. And so back to Robin and his decision, BMW is a gamble. This order was never meant to be large scale.
True.
Right? The Z-Neuro 1E, which is the BMW EV brand, the first car that they wanted to make with CATL, never really sold. It actually was never sold. It was also the lease vehicle. And it was kind of a pilot model. And so when CATL took this on, they are fully aware that this is a small scale, high intensive R&D needed.
It's like a boutique project.
Exactly. So why did Robin take this on?
Because he can, I don't know.
Why did he take this on? We're not sure fully. We're not, we don't know the full story behind this. But if you draw parallel to the Apple story that we mentioned earlier, I think he might have believed that having BMW's stamp of approval, especially as a Chinese company based in Ningde, that would matter later on. So that's playing the long game, right? Every other battery manufacturer in China actually decided to go with the Civic route because of the Chinese subsidies. While he not only went with the Civic route to benefit from the subsidies, he also decided to take on this other project with BMW to become more established in the international scene or even domestically. Because once you serve the top, all the other customers are like, okay, we trust that stamp of approval and we can now make orders from you. And that's exactly what happened after BMW. And I'm going to kind of lightly touch on this 800-page German manual that
sounds like a lot.
Yeah, that's what BMW gave them. Here's a manual of our requirements. Please satisfy all of them. It's all in German. We will send you some engineers from our headquarters to help you, but you got to figure this out. Yeah. So 2014, Z-Neuro 1E was out in the market. Didn't make a huge splash, but it gave CATL that stamp of approval.
And on top of that, I think BMW also needed a Chinese supplier. It needed a local battery partner for the Chinese joint venture. It can't just find any other one if you want to be selling inside of China. So BMW was, producing this small batch first trial Z-Neuro 1E, but has super high standard because of the 800 pages German manual that they had give. And they also bring about a couple very tough questions, and one of which, a technical issue that they want is most of EV manufacturers, they want a charging cycle of 2,000 to 3,000 times. BMW wanted 10,000 times charging circles. So it was a lot higher than before, even though you just have a very, small order at the time, but the requirements are super high. And for all the other battery manufacturers, they're like, like maybe not, because it's not like highly profitable. But for Robin, as a PhD who newly graduated, said, oh, this is like paying me to study, like what you have. I want this. So I think that also probably played a part it was definitely a two-sided decision making that made it clap.
Definitely. Yeah. So that actually really benefited them in the long run. And I want to jump a little bit now to kind of go back to the whole EV landscape around this time. So kind of 2011 to 2014 era, this is really just small scale, high end production. It's not EV as we know it today, right? So 2011, when CATL was first established, there was only 50,000 EVs delivered in the world, 0.2% of all car sales. Right?
High-end luxury cars.
Very high-end luxury cars. Roadster that year, which was probably the most sold number of EV sold in terms of passenger vehicles, only a few hundred, right? And last year, that sale is 20 million cars, EVs. So you can see the scale at which EV as an industry is growing. And the time when CATL decided to really pivot is so early that they have a first mover's advantage, especially in China. By 2014, which is when they kind of deliver the BMW model, the major player in the world is Panasonic. Panasonic owned 40% of the market, being the sole supplier for Tesla. Right. Other two major players are LG Chem or LG Energy and Samsung SDI. The two of them supplied a mixture of European and American manufacturers. Japan dominated the market with Panasonic and Tesla relationship. Korea followed, right, with LG and with Samsung. BYD was the only domestic Chinese manufacturer that actually had enough traffic, had enough orders, and it was less than 5% of the entire market, right? So with government support, interestingly, from 2011, with the 50-50, at least 50% domestically owned, to supply Chinese EVs, and also a lot of subsidies going into the EV manufacturers. CATL's largest customer by 2014 is actually not BMW. Is a bus company called Yutong. And Yutong is the largest bus company, bus producer in China. And Yutong has sustained that top position with CATL all the way to 2017.
Wow.
Interesting, there's actually more EV buses made in China than EV passenger vehicles for those times because of the government-led initiative. So why did the Chinese government decide to supply subsidies to make buses rather than or other passenger vehicles? Yeah. It is because, again, remember when ATL decided to work on the polymers rather than the cylindricals because they're new, they couldn't compete. Same reason for China to decide on buses, to compete and subsidize buses rather than passenger vehicles. Is because they realize they cannot compete immediately with passenger vehicle EVs. So a little bit of chemistry background, right? I'm sorry if I explain this wrong because I'm really bad with chemistry. There is two types of EV batteries in mainstream, two types of EV batteries. And one is called NCM batteries, which stands for nickel, cobalt, and manganese. And that's the component where the cathode, which is one of the component, the positive end of the battery is made from. And this is what Tesla has been using, what most of the passenger vehicle has been using around that time. They're using this battery, although it's less stable, they're using this battery because it will provide you higher range. It has higher energy density, which means per every kilogram, you can store more energy. So back then, if you want the car to run for 300 kilometers with one charge, in the ideal scenario, you need an NCM battery.
Well, considering US consumers that are driving road trips and very long distance, that seems to be the right option.
And you're comparing yourself to the gas, right? So, fill in gas, I can drive for 500 kilometers. I need at least 300 kilometers out of an EV. So China doesn't have that technology and needs a bit of time to develop this. So they had their eye on something called the lithium iron phosphate, which in short is called LFP, and it's F rather than iron I is because in the periodic table, iron is Fe.
Wow.
Yes.
Chemistry points.
Yeah. Do you remember this lesson from high school? So LFP batteries are lowering energy density by about 40% at the time. So you actually can only pack maybe 150 to 200 kilometer range in a normal sedan with its weight limitations. And so nobody wanted a car that can only run for 150 kilometers before you have to sit down and charge it. And back then, charging time is high, right? And so China said, hey, we can do the lower density battery, but we'll just run it on heavier vehicles. Because if the buses are heavier, the amount of weight difference will matter less, right? So we can fit heavy battery into buses, and the buses run on fixed routes. So your charging station is more fixed. And there's limited bus running at night, so they all had a schedule. So everything made it easier for that development to go toward that direction, which is why China actually promoted the use of LFP battery. So that's two different directions where your Panasonics, your Samsung, and your LG is going all in for NCM, and your BYD, your CATL, well, we'll talk about CATL later, but most of the Chinese EV battery manufacturers during the early days was going for LFP. This then made a difference when in 2015, a scandal broke out in China. So remember, Chinese government started to give out big subsidies, huge subsidies in the tens of billions of CNY, right? And a couple years later, by the end of 2015, a study was done on subsidy frauds.
Of course.
So, faking the fact that you produced a EV or recycle a battery and call it a new one to get the subsidies from the government. In one report, more than 1/4 of the subsidy given are fraudulent.
Wow.
It's a huge size, right? So the Chinese government had a decision to make where they had to think about, do we keep on giving out these subsidies or do we stop? And luckily, they decided to continue because yes, there's subsidy fraud, but we still want to support this industry. The industry in 2015 is nowhere near competitive compared to your global giants. And so we need to subsidize, but we need to then raise the bar to prevent these fraud and to concentrate or to knowingly help to concentrate the industry to give more resources to the big and good players.
The tech-heavy ones.
The tech-heavy ones that knows their stuff, that are less likely to just benefit from subsidy fraud, right?
Because
so the serious ones.
Right, or to really go into the R&D bit, right? Like those will, with like proper R&D departments.
Right, and that's when the whole industry took a turn around this time. And soon enough, and this is the thing with Chinese policy making, it's very fast. So early 2016, so they discovered this whole fraud. They did this whole study end of 2015. Early 2016, they're like, nope, now we're only going to subsidize if you buy your battery from these companies. These companies are known for investing in high energy density. they have less fraudulent activities going on, and they have good R&D. So
Good
there's a
track
list.
record.
There's a list. So CATL obviously made it to that list, being one of the best EV battery companies out there. At the same time, because of the subsidy fraud, the government did drop the absolute number of subsidies that are provided. So as a mix, a lot of battery suppliers died around those time. For a good reason, right? So it's government policy, again, trying to focus resources on a few big ones, which is what helps CATL and BYD grow so big.
I think a lot of people would think that the government subsidies would go into the Chinese players as a way to fight the outsiders. But to be honest, I think the insider fight could be more intense than the outsider fight, because just think about how large that industry is in China and how many people can just fake a factory inside of China. So this act essentially cleaned up the market and leave the better ones competing in the market, right?
Yeah. And this is actually, to digress a little bit, this is actually what the Chinese government has done with a lot of industries to force M&A activities, basically, so that the top can compete internationally. Right. So
makes sense.
So as a result, in 2016, CATL became the third largest EV battery manufacturer in the world, surpassing Samsung and LG. And obviously, Samsung and LG didn't make the whitelist because another, I guess, effect of the whitelist is to ensure that the EV manufacturer only purchase from domestic companies. So sadly, Samsung and LG actually, through their JVs, made a lot of investment early on in 2014. But because of the whitelisting process, that effectively protected the Chinese domestic battery manufacturers from the likes of Japanese and Korean battery manufacturers. So it is a protective policy, but as we know, all countries use protective policies to grow their industry. And this is actually, if I were to think about it in hindsight, well played. One other thing happened in 2015. TDK, the old owner, actually had a strategic shift.
Oh, of course. Why are they still in this story?
They're about to be gone. So 2015, they actually voluntarily, remember they had a 15% stake in CATL in the beginning when they established. They wanted to actually focus on their core industry, which is ATL, the consumer electronic battery manufacturing. In 2015, they said, hey, is anyone interested in buying out my 15% share? I can shift. Right. So then the owners of CATL then went around to ask, who's interested? So luckily, one of the owners had a classmate whose company just IPO'd and he has all this cash. His IPO company, this new investor's IPO company, has nothing to do with EV or EV battery. He's making garments and fabrics, advanced garments and fabrics for ERs and for clean rooms. But he had all this cash. He said, I'll take it over. And that is the best investment this guy has ever made. Because if you look, I looked into the Forbes how much this guy currently owns, right? I think 1/7 or 1/6 to 1/6 of his absolute wealth is from his own company, the one that IPO. Yeah.
And all the rest
is from the CATL 15% investment.
By a very random investment that your classmate's friend had asked you to put in to a company that you almost have no knowledge about.
I'm sure he did some kind of due diligence, but yeah, effectively. It might be a bit of a gamble, but we're glad it paid off.
Oh, it paid off. What if it didn't pay off? He would have, he would still have his own company.
He would still have his own company, but the story would be very different.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So as of 2015, end of 2015, CATL is 100% owned by Chinese companies or individuals. But it still has ties with ATL being neighbors, right? So by 2017, then the CATL then became the number one largest battery manufacturer. and move past BYD and Panasonic. And this is where I jump back to the earlier chemistry lesson. The fact that CATL can surpass BYD, because the whitelisting process only protected two things. One is protecting the domestic battery manufacturers from only whitelisting Chinese companies, but also raise the bar in terms of energy density, right? So by raising the bar of energy density, actually gave a bit more favoritism to CATL, because CATL is the only company that invested both in NCM and LFP development. So when you raise the battery density requirement, the old LFP batteries are no longer as competitive. And the car manufacturers are like, okay, load me up on NCM batteries.
And I think CATL made an accidental decision on making the NCM batteries. It wasn't, well planned and intentional, but it was just my clients need NCM battery. Therefore, I must know how to do this. And therefore, they had both LFP and NCM batteries.
Exactly. Because with the BMW relationship, even though the first car was an LFP car, because of all the foreign relationships they had and the higher demand of those car manufacturers, they had to invest a bit more R&D in all kinds of different diverse type of batteries. And so continuous research is something that they really required. So then 2017, 6 years after their original separation from ATL, they became the #1 largest battery manufacturer in the world. Pretty impressive. But we know that they can't do this just by establishing a company with 6 years experience. It basically took all the experience from ATL from the past 10 years into making this, right? So by then jumping ahead to 2019, the government decided, hey, like we gave you subsidies, we gave you protection, we did the whitelisting for so many years. Whitelisting for 3 years effectively banned Japanese and Korean companies from entering the market. I think we've done enough.
Yeah.
We're gonna exit. We're still gonna give out subsidies, but we're not gonna do the whitelisting process anymore. So Samsung and LG then had their eyes going back on the Chinese EV industry. And so there was a little bit of competition brought back to the market. And CATL actually did something really well in protecting their market share. What they've done is, at that time, they realized there's a relationship breakdown. I don't know if they fully realized, but there has been a relationship breakdown
I know what relationship is.
between Tesla and Panasonic.
Ooh, what a happy marriage.
Happy marriage, a few years.
Right.
Yeah, 7 years each. So Panasonic has always been the battery manufacturer for Tesla, great relationship, right? But Elon is a guy who's
had an affair.
I guess you can put it that way.
Was eyeing multiple pretty battery girls at the time.
Yeah. So, battery landscape change and things obviously develop. New R&D technology comes out, price levels change, and Tesla as a company had to look for other alternatives because it was struggling with the very high QA and the very high maintenance that's required for Panasonic to continue to produce NCM batteries for them. And so it's eyeing for alternatives. In 2019, actually, there was other technological breakthrough in battery making in the LFP end. And it's actually triggered by the Chinese companies, both BYD and CATL. Despite the NCM domination, actually, they continue to invest in improving the LFP technology to the sense that the new LFP batteries now have the same amount of energy density as the old NCM batteries. So they can now also do 300 kilometers per charge.
The thesis between the Panasonic and BYD and CATL was, if you were Panasonic and having NCM batteries, you need to effectively think about how to make it safer and cheaper. But if you're LFP, you need to pack more energy into the same volume.
Exactly. You nailed it.
Right. So the game was on, and people didn't believe that LFP was an option. It was so low end. But BYD and CATL, and I've been waiting for this moment for a long time, made LFP great again.
They indeed have. So they believed in the LFP technology. The innovation is called cell to pack. So they basically packed more cells into the same space. NCM at that point is still developed further, so you can still pack more into an NCM battery, but it's good enough for your average consumer. And Tesla realized that it's good enough for your average consumer. And 2019 is also when Tesla decided to build a new gigafactory in Shanghai.
Remarriage.
So Zeng then, Robin, went to Tesla and said, hey, here's our new technology. Here's how much we can sell it to you for. Maybe consider us when you build this new factory. We can be a new supplier for you. And Elon, being very profit-driven, agreed. So the China production lines basically split in two. The regular Model S, right, is produced with CATL's LFP technology. The more long-range versions are still using LG. And this is basically the split for a lot of car manufacturers. So Xiaomi, for example, which we covered in a previous episode, which you can review. Plug. So Xiaomi, for example, now have 4 cars, 4 SU7 cars, 4 of their sedan cars. The regular SU7, the Pro SU7 uses LFP. The Max and Ultra uses NCM.
Driving range.
Exactly. And so there's still demand for both batteries. It's just really shifted. If you look at the chart, it's like 80% NCM back in the days, and then now 80% LFP. Because of this breakthrough in energy density and packing more into one cell or into one pack. So then CATL is on the rise all the way to 2019, secured the Tesla deal. CATL now has 24% of global EV battery manufacturing capacity. And guess where does that put Panasonic?
At least not number 2. I mean, number 2 seems to be BYD.
Yes.
So it has to be more than 3.
So in 2020, it's number 3. It's actually CATL, LG, and Panasonic.
Ooh.
Because I think BYD, we're going to talk about this now, but BYD made another decision, which is we're going to supply our own cars rather than becoming the suppliers of other EVs, which actually really deteriorated their demand.
Right.
But they later caught on because of their EV sales really skyrocketed. And so Panasonic at that time only has 18%. Panasonic today only has 4% of the market share.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it made a huge gamble in Tesla, which ultimately didn't pay out. And they had, I guess, trouble diversifying their customer base. Okay. So everything is great for CATL.
Their battery is basically ubiquitous at this point.
Yeah. Number 1. And it has 20-something% global market share. But within China, it is dominant with 50%. So almost half of all EVs are equipped with CATL batteries. And so it commanded enough authority to start making demands on its customers.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Which is why for the past few years, it's been making some headlines that are not super positive, despite being the first in the market, right? So in 2019 is the same year where they started to ask guarantees from their customers. So they need all of their customers to tell them how much they're going to order in the next 5 to 10 years, and then pay a deposit, put a deposit into CATL to guarantee that level of order. And if you hit the level order, then you get the guarantee back. If you don't hit that level of order, they're going to not give all the money back to you.
As a collateral sort of mindset.
Exactly.
But they're a public company right now, right? So they have to have some sort of collateral if anyone defaults.
It's true, but it is also very demanding because it's usually the car manufacturer that faces the consumer and just the marketing that demands from the suppliers. But because of CATL's dominance in the China market and because BYD decided to only supply themselves or 80% supply themselves, CATL had that power to really like push.
Command the customers.
Command the customers. And they did other things to command the customers because of the EV sales increase in 2021, 22. Lithium battery became 7 times as more expensive, or lithium
coal.
Yes.
Mining.
The lithium as like the element became 7 times as more expensive. And so CATL naturally had to push that cost to the customers.
Yeah.
That actually drove a lot of small EV manufacturers into bankruptcy.
Oh.
Yeah.
7 times more. And battery is a very large chunk of
Exactly.
EV.
So they couldn't really command 7 times as more, but because of their market size, they can push more of the cost increase toward the customers. So there are things that they've did over the past few years that kind of signal that they are the battery manufacturer and they can do kind of things to their customers that their customers may not like. Despite that, their market share still increased. So last year it was 37% already globally.
Right.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the game hasn't ended yet. And especially in the EV battery making field, it doesn't matter how large your current market is, but if you were to have the right technology for the next generation of the EVs, you can really overtake quite fast.
Exactly.
And that's probably how, when no one thinks about LFP was a thing, they made a bet on LFP, and BYD and CATL perfected it, basically. Made it into what BYD calls it, the blade battery, right? And CATL is a ceiling battery. But, are there any other new things that they're doing these days that would ensure that maybe 5 years from here that they will still be in the game for battery making?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. So you're right in that they're under a lot of pressure to continuously innovate, because if they don't innovate, then they're at the risk of one of their competitors jumping ahead. And this is what CATL did to a lot of their competitors. So they're constantly innovating to prevent that from happening to them. So like you said, so one, Qilin is their NCM battery, and they've developed that technology, released it in 2022. They also continue to invest in LFP as well. So the Shenxing battery is released in 2023, and it's the world's first 4C rate charging battery. And that means that battery you can charge for 10 minutes and get 400 kilometers of range.
Jeez.
Yes.
Without exploding. It is like a phone.
No, it is like a phone, right?
Yeah.
And other things they're investing more in the long term. One is the sodium ion batteries. So back to chemistries, lithium ion batteries are generally lighter, but they also have limited supply. So lithium is obviously more limited than sodium, which is salt.
Which is the entire ocean.
Effectively. And so a lot of companies actually started to invest in the next generation of batteries, and sodium was one of the potential ideas. But sodium being a much larger molecule, there are some, I guess, R&D hindrances in how it can really go to market. But last year, 2025, CATL released their first sodium-powered battery, Nextra. It's called Nextra. And they also released another battery called FreeVoy. And FreeVoy is a hybrid sodium-lithium battery. So it actually has a system where it turns lithium in, I guess, certain environment, and it converts to sodium powered in certain other environments, because sodium has a better temperature range. So, for example, if you go all the way to the Siberia areas, you can use the sodium power part of this hybrid battery. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's something they really want to mass commercialize in the future. Another thing that every battery manufacturer is investing in is called solid state battery. So currently all the battery, the inner cells, the electrolytes of the battery is either liquid or gel.
Right. Because it glues everything together. It passes
Exactly.
the positive to the negative. Yeah. It allows the transportation. Sorry, as you can hear, I'm also
Allows
a
the
chemistry major.
So then for solid state, they started development or R&D as well. They first actually released something called the semi-solid state, so like a mixture of gel and solid state in 2023, and it's called condensed matter. And then now they're developing more directly into solid state, but there is a lot of competitors in that field. So Panasonic is investing, Samsung is investing. So whoever gets to solid state first, and solid state has like a lot more energy density, right? So whoever gets to that first might really, again, jump ahead and take over in terms of shares. And if you achieve solid state or something with, battery density of as high as, let's say 500 watt hours per kg, you can then think about other vehicles that are much larger than cars. So airplanes and marine ships. Yeah. So interestingly, actually, a very small single-digit percentage of CATL's current revenue is already on battery production for these kind of large transportations. So that's definitely a place that they're going to pursue in the future.
It's only reasonable, right? Like you either develop the next generation of the technology or you try to put your batteries in more things.
Exactly.
Yeah, whatever thing that can carry a battery around, you're going to put it in.
Yeah. And knowing how this group always thinks ahead, they need to be well prepared.
Right.
Okay, so something else that happened in 2025 last year is that CATL actually made it to the largest IPO in the world. It raised $4.6 billion US in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And in that year, its revenue still went up 17% year over year. For a company that already made it to the top of the EV battery manufacturing market share in 2017, 8 years later, they're still growing at double digits. And their profit is growing at even higher rates because of how much they can command and the fact that they entered into new businesses like the energy storage systems and battery recycling. And so with this IPO, it's actually not the first time they IPO'd, it's actually the second time. The first time they IPO'd is in the Shenzhen Stock Exchange's, it's called the Chinex mark, which is, if you also kind of referring back to our first episode on Insta360. It's similar to that. So it's for technology companies, up and rising companies to IPO.
And people call it the NASDAQ of China.
Yes. And so it's back then it was 2018. And the amount of money they raised is, not as high, but it did make it to that board's top list immediately after it IPO'd. And so that was 2018 in Shenzhen, and then 2025 again in Hong Kong. The 4.6 billion they raised, a lot of it is actually going into a factory that they are building in Hungary. And this is one of the 2 factories they have built in Europe. And this is basically their ambition to enter Europe, or they already enter Europe, their ambition to become the first battery manufacturing supplier everywhere else in the world. Right. So while they have been first in China for a really long time, they do have a lot of competition abroad. And there actually has been one company in Europe that wanted to take CATL's place for a while, and it bankrupted in 2024. And that is called Northvolt. It basically had the investment of entire Europe and the orders of almost every European EV manufacturer. And we believe that because of how fast it's trying to kind of jumpstart, right, without years of manufacturing expertise and operational management is what caused it to ultimately fail, because it not only decided to start the facility in a city that doesn't have that much battery manufacturing history, it also decided to expand into different cities too quickly, too fast. And so Northvolt, unfortunately, last year ended up filing for Chapter 11. Yeah, and throughout CATL's, I guess, lifetime, there has been a lot of competition as well. So not only Northvolt, but in Japan, Panasonic actually restarted a JV with Toyota, wanting to gain back its market share that it lost. And similarly, other EV manufacturers in China has been popping up as well. Namely, 15 EV car manufacturers sponsored or started investing in their own EV battery production. And this goes back to how, the whole guarantee system and everything that CATL has done to their customers has kind of angered some of them, and they wanted an alternative. So it is not without threat that they're operating in this place. Yeah. But regardless. Yeah,
just a bit more on the Northvolt story, because why it was such an amazing attempt, but it failed, and I'm surprised at how long that it lasted before it finally filed for bankruptcy. It seems like a struggle, like a burn towards the end. First look at the company, the right people, maybe the right people, but definitely not the right location. Peter Carlson and Paolo Cerruti, both of them are ex-Tesla. One was the VP for supply chain during Model S time. And prior to that, he was very involved in Sony Ericsson manufacturing and NXP Semiconductor, both in manufacturing. And Paolo was working in the operations planning for Tesla. So supposedly these two people should know the most from within Tesla how batteries would work. They both left Tesla in 2015. And before Northvolt was called Northvolt, it's called SGF Energy. And obviously this dream is for Europe to build its own battery industry to avoid dependency completely on Asia, like Panasonic and BYD and CATL. So they had realized that and trying to replicate. But the location that they've picked is within the Arctic Circle.
Oh.
And the reason why they picked it in the Arctic Circle is because of its easy access to hydropower, complete clean energy, which is okay, but it wasn't valid enough for me, and I will tell you why. Being in the Arctic Circle, what made it very difficult to attract talents, not like Ningde. Ningde, at least, is still a coastal city, has very easy convenience, conveniently located in between larger cities within Fujian province, and great seafood. It's kind of subtropical. Supporting companies are all based in those places. So there is a cluster of how the supply chain would work in a place like Ningde. And I was trying to think of the places that I've been to close to the Arctic Circle. The northmost place I've ever been to is Tromsø in Norway. And you can see beautiful aurora there. There's not much going on, and it is really very cold. And if you're in the manufacturing business, you're thinking logistics, easy in and easy out. So when you're putting all of your ingredients in the Arctic Circle and ship the final product out, it doesn't seem like that decision is well thought out of. And the last bit, I think, of how they failed would be the complete lacking of just manufacturer experience. It is more complicated than you think. Making one piece of battery seems like only have 4 stages, but within that 4 stages, you have really 20, 30 steps, and every single step requires very high precision. And each step is associated with a defect rate. If every single one of that step you have a higher defect rate by 1%, let's just say 99%, 20 steps, you compound 99% 20 times, you end up with 82%. Right. So an 82% in battery making for EVs, that means a lot of safety concern.
That means unacceptable.
That means unacceptable, and people will die, right? To put it into perspective, The industry standard is parts per million cells, and CATL is at parts per billion, that level of manufacturing. It means that they do not tolerate any mistakes. And they have a hellish level for making factories work. And I haven't really personally been in a CATL factory, but just judging by the videos that I've seen of, from the outside or parts of the factories, you can see that it is pristine. It is very well managed. And to avoid any steam that is being brought into the factory, because that also causes the battery defects, they essentially just make sure that you have enough masks that go onto every single employee's face.
Oh, because you can't breathe.
Yeah, breathing also affects your battery quality.
Wow.
So breathing is obviously allowed, but not encouraged, but it is well masked. So that's the level of CATL's management at the battery factories. For Northvolt, they obviously opened the factory, but because they were not able to deliver on time. And if you're in the battery making business and EV making business, you cannot miss deadline, and you have to be able to supply at the right quantity at the right time. And then they failed at that multiple times. So all of the European buyers, they started to withdraw and cancel their orders and ended up with not having any money in their account and had to file bankruptcy.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
One less competitor for CATL going forward.
Yeah.
So why do you think CATL ascended? And I'm just, okay, before we talk about that, after their 2025, I guess, second IPO, their share price continued to rise. So right now, their market cap is already 290-ish, about to approach $300 billion US dollars. This makes them somewhere between 40 to 50 globally in terms of market share. I looked up the list yesterday. The company that's ahead of CATL is Morgan Stanley. The company that is below CATL is Novartis. So CATL is Novartis, Morgan Stanley levels. And the only companies, at least the public ones, that are larger than CATL in China, there's two types. The first one is Tencent Alibaba. Makes sense.
Right, yeah.
Right, Tencent Alibaba, tech companies, basically. And the second type is bank and oil, state-owned.
Traditional, yes.
Exactly. So as a battery manufacturer, making it to the top 10 in China, it's phenomenal.
Not investment advice, but just cool facts that we found. Cool facts.
Cool facts.
All right. So I guess at the end, we always ask ourselves, why did this company ascend? Why do we pick it?
Is actually among, I was thinking back on this, it was actually among all of the companies that we picked prior, it's the only one that we can really claim to be the number one in the world, right? Even though all the other companies like Xiaomi ascended, Xiaomi was number 3 in terms of phone manufacturing, and not there yet in terms of EV manufacturing. It did ascend, but CATL is absolute number 1 in all kinds of metrics in EV battery making for the past few years.
Whether it's the market cap, the growth, the volume
of batteries delivered, everything.
Wow. And truthfully, this episode has been incredibly difficult to record just because how much information that we're able to find, whether it's online, offline, in Chinese and English, and piecing everything together. And also given Robin has been doing so many things at the same time, we figured that while you think it is one person just chairing a company, he's actually living like 2-3 people's life at the same time.
Oh, for sure.
You know, he's easily managing more than one company and studying while managing a couple companies and being approached by 1 million government officials.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So it seems like he himself never stopped pursuing and progressing within the battery industry. And from a very product-driven point of view, he was always able to deliver the product that resolves the client's pain point. And he always made things better, cheaper. He just doesn't want an unperfect final product.
Yeah.
I think that's why he was able to get to the market share as for now.
Definitely. Being very demanding, actually, when you talked about the whole factory, the amount of level of pristineness, right? The level of demand for a factory. He's always there to make sure that CATL is number one in all the steps along the way. Another thing I think he did really well, or CATL did really well, was eyeing for the largest, the most prestige customer. So with portable electrics, they went for Apple, and Apple helped sustain their orders going forward. And with CATL, the BMW relationship, even though it might not be as profitable or as many orders, that helped them, right? Just in terms of prestige. I think that going for a tough customer earlier on might not be economically beneficial, but in the long term, it will help you.
So even though CATL arrived quite late to the battery race, right now it seems pretty obvious that it's winning. And it's founded in a second-tier city, but somehow it made sense. And inside the company where it was originally owned by a Japanese conglomerate, in a market where there were multiple players trying to get onto the game, they still find their very unique value proposition always in the game.
I talked about how the government subsidies and the whitelist really helped Chinese EV battery manufacturers to develop during those years. But there are 100, if not more, manufacturings during that time. So it's not, even though the policy helped the industry to grow, how does CATL really stand out from the industry, right? It's because they diversified into a lot of paths to pursue to ensure that they lower their risk in general. And so we're seeing that they're continuing to do that with aviation, marine, sodium, and all kinds of other things that they're investing in. So diversifying and almost like not caring about the immediate returns, but look for the long run benefit.
That's usually quite rare for a business.
Especially, I would say, in China.
Yeah.
Because the market just demands short-term return so much.
Yeah, that's very true. All right.
Cool.
Thumbs up. Yay.
We're done.
We're done. And if CATL's story sparked something for you, whether it's their business strategy or the battery science, I'm sorry if we poorly explained the science to you, or if it's Robin's character who, always solved the hardest problem and refused to give up. If you like the story, share it with someone who deserves to understand how Asian business actually works, and not just the headline version, but the real version. And subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and we shall see you in the next episode of Ascent.
Bye everyone.